down from 5.
Okay. All right. I'll unmute myself. Good evening, Falls families. Hopefully you're joining us here, and we're live. My name is Brad Hoffman. I am the principal at Shady Lane. I'm one of our 4K through 2nd grade buildings, and so I appreciate you coming to join us for this presentation tonight. I've got with me our other elementary school principal colleagues, and so I'll let them introduce themselves. And then we're going to go through a bit of a slideshow, but I want to first let them introduce themselves. So, Tina?
Hello, I'm Tina Poznansky. I'm the principal at Valley View Elementary School. I am the principal. Valley View is for 3rd grade through 5th grade, and we are the partner school with Shady Lane.
Welcome, I'm Carlene Hansen. I am the principal of Ben Franklin Elementary, and we have 4K through 2nd graders here.
Good evening, Scott Walter, home of the Riverside Rockets. We are the 3rd through 5th grade partner school of the Statesmen over at Ben Franklin. So super excited you're with us tonight. And like I said this afternoon, we're just excited to get the kids back and excited to meet with you and answer your questions tonight.
All right, well, thanks guys. And if you've just joined us in the last few seconds, we just introduced ourselves, and I'm going to jump into a slideshow to kind of go through some of the things that we're going to be talking to tonight. So please have patience with me and a little grace. We'll see how the sharing of my screen goes and make sure we're in the right spot. Give me just a second. All right. And Scott, I can see you. If you give me a thumbs up on your camera, if you can see my screen, then I know I'm good. All right.
Awesome.
So yeah, again, welcome. Carlene and Tina and Scott and I will be taking you through a few of the things that I think everybody has questions about, or what the school year is going to look like. And so this is kind of what we're going to hit tonight. We'll talk a bit about hybrid instruction and what that actually means at the elementary level, because that's the way we are going to begin the school year. You recall that you were asked to choose between what we called option 1 or a fully virtual option if your child is not able to be in school or you don't feel comfortable doing that. And so option 1 is really 3 different models that will possibly change between, depending on the health metrics and some of our own metrics in school. And so that goes from fully face-to-face and in-person in school, or a hybrid bit of where we are in-person in school half of the week and at home tuning in virtually half of the week, or if need be, in a fully virtual model. So those will be guided by the health metrics as we see them, as we work with our health partners at the county and at Children's Hospital and some of our local pediatricians, and also as well as some of our internal data. So we are planning to start hybrid, so we will spend our time tonight discussing hybrid instruction. And then we'll also talk about some of our building procedures, what we're going to do to keep your kids safe, and how things are going to change a bit from what the norm was when we had all of our students in school. And then we'll finish up with some questions with the time that we have permitting at the end. There are, I know, thousands of questions out there, and we're going to do our best to answer most of them tonight. I know a lot of those questions will be really specific, that you'll want to reach out to your building principal, and when you know your child's teacher, to your teacher, but we'll do our best to answer most of those tonight. And then I just want to remind you that school-specific information will be coming this week. So we've been working hard since we've decided on the model to begin the year with doing some redesign of our classes and our A-B groupings. And so a letter from the principals will be coming this week that will have that information, who your child's teacher will be, whether you're in the A group or the B group, and other information about some of our assessment conferences and all of that. So look to that this week. You'll get a lot more specific information to you and your child in your actual elementary school. So those assessment conferences, you'll find directions about that and links to sign up are really important. That's really the chance for you and your child to meet your child's teacher, ask those questions, find out what the class is like, what things will look like, get set up in that technology. And those are some crucial times coming up later next week is when those conferences are. So Before we get started, we just want to thank you for your understanding. This is, since March, has sent our whole world in a bit of a tailspin, and as a school adjusting last spring and over the summer to what we could expect this fall. And we are all four passionate educators that love education and teaching and kids and being in the building. None of us, when we went into this profession, expected to be doing this in a virtual or hybrid or any kind of model during a pandemic. And so we appreciate your flexibility. We appreciate your understanding, your grace through this whole process. We've had to reinvent a whole schedule that we've always known as a school. The way we are in the building, those procedures have changed and instruction methods are going to look different. So we're making adjustments, and we appreciate your flexibility and your understanding. So ask questions as you have them, and I'm going to turn it over to Scott to talk a little bit more about what the building is going to look like on a day-to-day basis. Scott?
All right. Thanks, Brad. So we want to talk a little bit about just some protocols that we'll have in place for, like Brad said, just normal day-to-day operations. So I'll go through some of these. And the first bullet really hits on some of the things that we're going to start covering right away that first week of school. Obviously, the first week's going to look a little bit different, but we reserved a lot of time, or are going to reserve a lot of time. Our teachers are going to be establishing those routines for just good hygiene. What does good hand washing look like? You know, how long and how are we doing it in the classroom? When are we going to do it? Those types of things. And by the when, I mean, we need to establish protocols for recess. We'll talk about that later. Like, we need to wash hands before recess, after recess. So we're going to talk about all those things that first week of school. And I know this is kind of a review for even our older kids, our fifth graders, but it's never enough to say it again, how we cough, you know, how we sneeze and all those things, you know, how to cover our mouth. So those are the types of things that we're going to do some very explicit direct teaching with the first week of school. The next thing we'll talk about is the idea of a mask. Obviously, I know some of you, and thank you for that, are getting your kids used to at home already, how to wear that mask and be comfortable with the mask. And I know some of you I've seen around town have a wide variety of masks and some colorful, neat ones out there too. I'm trying to pick out my colorful masks. But so we'll establish protocols with that. By our school board policy, I know it says cloth masks. It doesn't matter if it's a cloth or disposable mask. You can wear either. As long as your child is wearing a mask, cloth or disposable, that is fine with us. We will have some natural mask breaks throughout the day when the kids are eating. Obviously, if they're outside at recess or outside for FIAD instruction, our teachers will also have some scheduled times during the day where the kids will be able to take a mask break as long as they're appropriately social distance. Most of our, if not all of our classrooms have snacks, so snacks in the classroom will be scheduled, and to be another time where the kids will not have their mask on. So I know there's probably going to be a lot of questions about masks, but I just wanted to highlight that a little bit. One of the things that was done this summer is in each classroom, when you walk in, our custodial staff installed hand sanitizing stations across the district, right in the doorway. So you'll notice those. Definitely going to be more cleaning and sanitizing efforts. I know there were some videos published on social media, I think a few days ago by our custodial staff. There's one, if you get a chance to watch it, and I know it's not going to be on our website if it's not already, there's one that kind of explains to you how students and staff will be responsible during the day, and then more importantly, that what does nighttime look like in a school building, and how are we going to disinfect the classrooms at nighttime. There's a difference obviously between sanitizing and disinfecting, and how are those classrooms going to be disinfected at night. And so those videos really do a nice job of explaining that. So I urge you to kind of pop on our website and check out those videos. We're really going to pay close attention to attendance and really look at absenteeism. And we do this already. I'll be honest with you, this is nothing new. We've had, the flu season around here. We have peak cold season, flu season. So we do this already. The principals meet regularly with a team of people at the school, look at attendance patterns, and then when we are done looking at those attendance patterns, if we notice that there's a classroom that's having a particular attendance issue, we will always follow up with our facility staff, and they will do some extra deep cleaning in those rooms. So this, yes, we're going to continue doing this, but I don't want you to think that this is a new protocol either, because we've always had that protocol, which I'm proud of, in place. We are going to, you see the next two bullets are kind of harsh, you could say, limit visitors and limit volunteers, but I think everyone understands we walk a fine line where we are elementary school and this needs to be a fun place for kids and we want to be a welcoming environment. But with the current situation that we're in, as Brad said, none of us predicted this or want the situation, but I think we all understand the protocols that have to be in place right now, where we do have to limit outside visitors in the buildings. We do have to limit volunteers to only essential volunteers to what's needed. So you will notice that, and please, please know this is not our desire to limit volunteers. As soon as our metrics change, that those decision points will change too, because we realize how valuable of a partner you are in your child's education, and we want you in the buildings. The teachers want you in the building, and most importantly, your son or daughter wants you in the building too. So we want to get you back. There's no large assemblies. Obviously, you've heard a lot of talk about that, going through this whole pandemic experience and the county limiting group size. So we will not be able to have large group assemblies this year. I'm going to skip to the last bullet for a second. Along with kind of related to no large assemblies, we are not going to be going out externally on field trips. I think you saw that change a little bit last year, but we'll continue to monitor that. Obviously, we want to give the kids rich experiences. I know some of the classrooms last year really did just a whale of a job creating virtual field trips for kids, and I know it's not the same, but I was just impressed by what I saw happening district-wide with some teachers creating virtual experiences for kids. So I know they're going to piggyback off each other, and you'll see some more virtual experiences going on for kids too. The last bullet that I kind of glossed over is we know we need to keep communicating to you information. We will not always have the answers, and I'm going to be honest with you, but I'm really, really happy and proud of the people the 3 people on my screen in front of me, the other principals. We will get you the answers. We will work our tails off to get you the answers. We may not have them right away, but we know we need to keep communicating with our kids and families to keep you up to date as the situation changes. So we can go to the next slide.
Yep.
Thank you. Or do I do that? Sorry.
I got it.
All right. Thank you, sir. See, I said I'm proud of the people. Brad is a very good slide flipper. One of his many talents. The next slide that I wanted to go over is kind of the cleaning and disinfecting and get into a little bit more detail with that. As I said, that first bullet, we're really concentrating on those high touch surfaces, and really the video will show you too if you get a chance to pop in there, but really teachers are going to be obviously assisting in that cleaning and wiping down those high touch surfaces during the day, and students assisting in that cleaning in shared surfaces they have touched. And I'm just going to give you an example. For example, if the students obviously are going to be at their table spots or desk spots, because remember, there are still some classrooms with tables. And if they are at a table, they are going to be distanced at that table, but they are going to be cleaning the surfaces that they're in front of, regularly throughout the day. But for example, if that student would go over to a small group table and work with that teacher in a small reading group or a small math group, as typically happens, when that student would leave, if they work with that teacher for 15 minutes, after that 15 minutes is up, when they leave that table, they are going to wipe down that chair and wipe down the surface of that table that they were at. So that's what it means by students assisting in some of the in the shared surfaces cleaning. That's going to be kind of their role in the process, and of course their own chair, their own table or desk spot, they're going to be helping with the cleaning in that. We did make a lot of changes to our HVAC systems over the summer. We did increase the external airflow, and remember the amount of external air coming into the building always is dependent upon the weather, but we used to be at about 10 to 15% external airflow, where it's going to change now to about 30 to 40%. We also increased the amount of filter changes during a year. Typically, we change filters 2 times a year. This we are changing them at least 3 times a year, which is a big increase. The filter ratings, we have increased the filters that we're actually using, a better quality filter to help with that air quality as well. We are going to limit sharing of materials as much as possible, as much as we can. So to give an example on the slide, it talks about physical education equipment. We would, before that next physical education class comes and uses, if there would be shared equipment, they would spray it down. We do the disinfectant we're using for that particular shared equipment is about a 10-minute kill time, so that equipment would not be touched until 10 minutes, until it's dry and until that 10 minutes goes by. But keep in mind, it's not going to be it's not going to be as many shared materials as was in the past. We are rethinking our instructional practices to it's going to be limited. So is it going to happen as much? No, but it's still going to happen at times, but we are going to make sure that we're careful with it and disinfecting things. We also talked to our staff this summer about when they're thinking about how to lay out the rooms, we want to make sure that we allow for as much social distancing. We also want to make sure that we remove any soft fabric surfaces from the rooms, because and a lot of you have been in our classrooms, you know there's flexible seating options and some soft furniture, some beanbag chairs, those types of things. We know those are really, really hard to clean, so we are removing those types of materials from our classroom and really sticking with just the hard surfaces and just one carpet in the classroom. If you want to change it, Brad. Thank you. The last piece that I wanted to talk about is kind of that student travel during the day. One of the things that we need to limit, obviously we're using that cohort model where students are in their same homeroom with that same teacher throughout the day, and we want to limit the intermixing. So we want to limit. We know it's a school. We know kids are going to pass by each other. We know they're going to intermix, but we want to limit as much as we can. One of the places that we don't always have a lot of control over is those bathrooms. So we talked about how can we control that bathroom capacity. Our teachers need to do more scheduled bathroom breaks where they're taking the whole class to the bathroom. And then, of course, the kids are welcome to go to the bathroom at any time, but we have to put protocols in place, how many students can be in the bathroom at a time. And that's what we're working through right now. And if you can't go in the bathroom at that particular time, where do you wait outside that bathroom? Do we put spots on the floor? And those are the protocols that we're establishing right now. Limiting student travels within hallways. We're working, if there are situations where one class would cross paths with another class on the way to maybe Fayette or on the way to music, could they take alternate pathways? We also talked about our bus dismissal at the end of the day. As you know, at the end of a typical elementary school day, we will have all of our kids out in the building, 350, 400 kids, usually being dismissed within a 3 to 4 minute period. We are going to have more of a staggered dismissal. So again, we're limiting that student travel in the hallway, so kids will have less intermixing, less contacts with other students as they're passing by. And the last thing we did when we talked about student travel was we know that our health rooms are a safe, welcoming place for kids, but we really needed to limit the amount of times that students are going to the health room, and they're really only going to the health room when they're sick or showing symptoms. There are some things that our teachers can handle within the classroom. For example, we know that we're elementary and kids lose teeth. Can we handle that lost tooth, or it's not lost, hopefully it's not lost, but can we give them the little plastic tooth carrier? Can we give them in the classroom instead of them walking to the health room and getting that, when potentially in the health room there could be an ill child? So we really want to limit that travel. So that's one of the things that we talked about, and really establishing a protocol, and we'll be going over with our staff as they come back next week. So, yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Carlene Hansen, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about recess. Really important time of the day for our students. And the students will not be out there in big, large groups. For example, here at Ben Franklin, we had that before school time at 8:30 when students would come here, and the entire school was out there. So we will, and we'll get into this more, but we will not be having the time where there's the whole entire school out in the playground before school. Instead, students will come into the building through a specific door, and we will send them with supervisors. We'll guide them up to their classrooms, and so we will just have smaller recess groups out on the playground. And the students, while they are out there, will be playing with their homeroom groups. And you're going to hear the term cohorts, and that's not really one we use a lot with the students. We won't be saying this cohort here, this cohort there, but it's a way of thinking for us that we really want to keep the same students together and limit that intermixing. So the students in the class within their different groups will be traveling together. So that means out on the playground at recess time, all of us have a specific plan in place where we're going to have play areas. So a certain classroom might have the swings for a day, and that's their area to play out on the playground. And the next day they would move to the next play area. We know it's all going to be a lot of fun for them, though. I'm sure they're anxious to see their friends and be out there in the groups. So we're looking forward to that, and we're anxious to see them having fun out there again too. So they'll be rotating through. They will have the same equipment, and we'll be having like a classroom supply baskets. So only the equipment from their room will be what they will use. They are washing their hands before they go out or sanitizing them, and then they're washing them when they come in. We are making a plan for how we get the students back into the building so that once again they are with their cohort in a safe manner that they travel in. So if they're lining up, each school is doing it a little bit differently, and you'll hear about that plan, but if they're lining up in lines, they are very well distanced. Some of us are just having the kids line up right by the area that they were playing in, and then the teachers are coming over to get the group to walk them into the building. So drop off and dismissal. As I said, there's no morning recess time anymore. So students will come to the building in the morning, and they will enter right into their door. And it's going to be staggered. So we have the benefit of they will still come at 8:30. For a lot of us, you know, outside, we'll be watching your students, your child come to school. We'll direct them to their doors. And because there's different drop-off times for buses and cars and walkers, they will have a natural staggered time, which will make things safer for all of us. And we're going to ask that all parents and guardians remain in their cars during the drop-off and pickup. And I'm sure you can understand why it's always a safety practice otherwise, but we would like to make sure now that we are really keeping everybody safe so that we do not have to have the concerns about different people mixing, different adults mixing within the student groups.
Mrs. Hanson, can I jump in for a second?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Please.
I apologize because both Mrs. Hanson and I are both using the staggered word, and I'm just noticing some of the questions. Please remember, and I apologize for the confusion because I started it. The school day will still start at 8:45 and still end at 3:45. When we say staggered in the afternoon, students may be leaving classrooms a little bit earlier, but the pickup time will still remain the same for everyone. The day will still end at 3:45 and the day will start at 8:45. So staggered in the morning means we, instead of letting, I'll give you an example at Riverside, instead of dismissing 3 buses at a time, we may only dismiss 1 bus at a time to start coming in. So that's what we mean by staggered. It will not affect the beginning time and end time. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And that drop-off time, for instance, cars come pulling in just because you can start dropping off your child at 8:30. You can still get here at 8:35, 8:40, and your child will still be on time. So it just works nicely that as they're coming, there's just some of that natural time. But you're right. Thank you, Scott. The times stay the same. So your school is going to outline that more specifically. As I was giving you some examples for Ben Franklin, all the other 3 schools have some really detailed plans. And I just want to give a really big shout out. Our staff, educational assistants, teachers, we have all been meeting regularly throughout the summer to get these plans in place. I was with my team again today, and we're still processing through. We read through the plan, make sure that it sounds right, think about it carefully, come back to it. So we are really putting all our efforts into making sure we haven't left out any detail or anything that we need to set up to make it safer. Lunch. So students, once again, I see that we have that staggered word in there, but it's going to, the lunch times and coming to the lunchroom will be, they'll come down again with their classes, but we're going to have if you've ever been here around lunchtime, you've seen all of the classes come down, maybe stand outside of the cafeteria to be admitted. And so we're going to really watch that the classes come down in a way where there's a space between the classes, a safe distance between them. As they enter the cafeteria, we have a plan also for them to get their food. So we're going to put spots on the floor so that there's going to be, so as they're in line, there's a distance between them in line. As they go through picking up their lunches, there's a lot of things put into place with our kitchen staff. They are going to be putting the food on the trays so that there's no salad bar or times when students would be touching spoons at the same time. Everything is really packaged nicely. In fact, we're going to have them do a little scissor first cut for our students so that it's easy for them to get it open for the younger ones. And, you know, the whole process, we've given a lot of thought to how we can safely distance them coming in, going through the line, and coming to their seats. Once they are in their seats, they are going to be sitting once again with their class, or what we call their cohort group. And we are going to have them safely distanced between the next cohort. So most of us are using another space besides just our cafeteria so that they really are spread apart. We were planning for this all before, not knowing for sure if we were going to need to go to a hybrid or face-to-face. And so we're going to have a lot of good procedures in place, but I'm really confident that the students are going to be safely distanced. And what we mean by staggered, students will not be right across from one another. So, you know, imagine like a zig or a X pattern, and we will show the students where to sit at their tables so that they are distance apart from one another. And then our dismissal, it'll be the same thing. We will carefully monitor how they leave the lunchroom so that they are safely spaced. One thing I left out, I'm looking at a point up here, is they will not be punching in their lunch numbers. We have kind of what looks like a coded, you know, barcode card for them, and they will just, you know, pass that at the end of the line after they have picked up their lunch. Just a little extra feature too is that we've planned the breakfast in the classroom this year. So if your child is doing the before school care, they'll eat like they did before with Kids Inc. But our cafeteria help will have carts, and they're going to bring the food to the classroom, and they will have a list for the teachers of students who are taking breakfast, and the teachers will pass out the breakfast to them. Specials. Oh, that's one of our students' favorite times of the day, and I know that they've really missed that contact with that, doing the specials at school. So I am so excited for them to get back to that. So to keep it safe and to really get our protocols underway and to make sure that our students know, you know, all the safety things that we're going to do for each of the specials, we are going to hold them in the classroom. So I'll go through each special so that you have a little bit of a picture of what that looks like. So all of them except for PE will be in the classroom. PE, we're going to be outside as much as possible. Of course, we have those inclement weather days, and if that should happen, we would make a plan. Sometimes we can still have those in the classroom, and there are things that the PE teacher is more instructing the students for when they get outside the next day. But we could also be in the gym really safely distanced, you know, in a manner that we have planned out a safe protocol for. So they're going to be doing a lot of individual skill development and activities that do not amount to a lot of sharing of equipment. Or no sharing of equipment, very minimal, or a safe way that we can clean it in between. Art instruction will be students using their own supplies. So in the past, they used to be able to put, you know, a box of crayons on the table and everybody kind of dug through. Right now, the students will use their own crayons, their own scissors, the materials that they have in the classroom. And I'm confident our teachers can really think of some fun things for the students to do in the room. Music, we are still doing, we're deep in the research to understand better about singing and really understand how we can involve the students with fun, exciting, engaging music activities. And our music teachers are the best. I always enjoy my visits to the room, but these are going to focus a lot on movement and rhythm, and I know they'll make it really fun for the students. But right now we are going to get the year started and do some more research on the singing and how safe that is. Library instruction will also be in the classroom, and we've got some plans as far as our media specialists bringing sets of books into the classroom And it's always kind of fun too for them to do themselves on the books, but I know kids are anxious to just have those actual hardcover books in their hands or soft covered books, as another option to the ebooks. But they'll also be able to make some choices online and, work with the media specialists to get those books to them. And guidance, we're going to have some big themes, and the guidance teachers will also do a lot of supporting in between for our students as they did other years, are going to be very key as we get this year started. Thanks. I think this is Tina, right?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm Tina Poznansky. I'm the principal at Valley View Elementary School. And now that you've heard about your mitigation practices and procedures, we're going to go over some of the specifics about the hybrid model. So what will the first few days of school look like for elementary? For that first week, all students will come to school 2 days. So if your child is in group A, they will come to school on Tuesday and Wednesday. And if your child is in group B, they will come to school on Thursday and Friday. In the mailing that Brad talked about earlier at the beginning, we will have that all spelled out. There will be a calendar in that mailing for September. So you will see exactly what days group A attends and what days group B attends. So it will be much more clear once you have that mailing later this week. During those first few days, we will really be focusing on building those relationships in that classroom community because that is so important in education. We're so excited to see the students come back after the long spring, and we haven't seen them all summer long. We're really excited to see their faces live here at school. And so we're really excited to start building those relationships again with our new classes. We will also be focusing a lot on those health and safety procedures that we've been talking about and instructing the students on all of those. Finally, we will also be focusing on a lot of the technology that the students will need throughout the time. The nice thing is now we have the time to introduce the students to those platforms. Unlike in the spring, it was sprung upon us all of a sudden we were going virtual and we really didn't have a chance to instruct all of the kids in those different areas. So we're really making sure in those first few days to make sure that we teach students all of those different technology platforms that we will be using. And for those first few days, of course, we will be making sure that we have some fun. When we build those relationships, we'll be playing some team games and things like that as well. Then on the next slide, we're going to hear a little bit more about that hybrid instruction. So all students will be split into Group A and Group B cohorts, and you will receive that information of which group your specific child will be part of. That is coming in that letter that you will receive later this week. We were sure to work across buildings to make sure that families, even if you have different last names, that you are able to stay on that same schedule, so you're in the same grouping. If you get a mailing that doesn't have that, please reach out. We tried our best to make sure to catch every single one, but when you're looking over the whole district, it's a possibility that we missed one or two. So please reach out if something isn't correct, but we really tried our best to make sure to catch every single family and make sure they're in the correct group. There was a pre-submitted question about the fully virtual teachers. The fully virtual teachers are different teachers than our in-person teachers. For our fully virtual teachers, each of those teachers have previously taught in that grade level so that they are aware of the curriculum, and they will also be working collaboratively with our in-person teachers. The next one is just a little bit of a graphic so you can see what days the different groups are attending. So if you're in Group A, your child is in Group A, they will be attending school every Monday and Tuesday. Group B on Monday and Tuesday will always join virtually. On Wednesdays is when we will alternate. So we will alternate Group A one week, the next week will be Group B, and then back and forth. And then on Thursday and Friday, if you're in Group A, you will always join virtually, and Group B will always be in person. So this is just a little bit of a graphic to help explain that. This is the calendar for September, and like I said, you will be receiving it later this week in your mailing. We just wanted to try to be very clear as to when those Wednesdays start alternating. You will notice of the first 2 weeks, they are only 4-day weeks. That is why we made sure each group was attending 2 of those 4 days. The first full 5-day week starts on September 14th. And that's why we had Group A starting on that Wednesday. And then the following week on the 23rd is B. And then we will see what model we will be after October 2nd. If we would still be in hybrid, it would continue to alternate back and forth. And then about the hybrid instruction. So when your child is joining virtually, they will want to follow their regular school day schedule, but they will just be following it at home. But I know a lot of parents were asking, do they have to sit at their computer all day long? And no, they will not be at their computer or on the screen all day long. So if your reading class starts at 9 a.m. and you are at home, your child would join for the mini lesson, which could be anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes long, depending upon what age your child is. And then at the end of that mini lesson, it would be followed by independent work, which is not on the screen. So they would be able to turn the Google Meet off or the live conferencing off and be able to do their own work. They might need to join a small group work virtually, but that would also just be a different lesson. All of those synchronous lessons will be videotaped, so you will have access to them later in the day if you're unable to attend a live lesson. And then finally, about student progress or student assessments, the assessments will be done on their in-person day. I know one of the pre-questions to this meeting was about those assessment days, and those will all be given within those in-person days. And then you might be wondering, what technology tools will we be using? We are trying to be consistent throughout all of elementary, so we are all using the same platform. So we will be really using that Google Suite a lot. All students from 1st grade through 5th grade will receive a school-issued Chromebook. If your child is in 4-year-old kindergarten or 5-year-old kindergarten and needs technology because they don't have access to technology at home, we will be able to provide them with additional Chromebooks as well. You would just need to communicate that to your teacher or principal. We will be doing our live video conferencing and recording those in Google Classroom. And then we will be using group meetings or one-on-one meetings in Google Meets. So that's just how we're using that whole Google Suite. And we also will be using Seesaw, which is just a platform where students can turn in different assignments through different modes. So it might be a video that they're doing or things like that, and then teachers are able to provide different feedback. But Seesaw will work in conjunction with their Google Classroom. And then we wanted to give just a few tips for at home. So at home, you will want to find a dedicated space for your child to do their school work. You'll want to make sure that this is a well-lit area, that it has, some school supplies in it, some pencils and pens and paper and things like that. It will also want to make sure that it's close to an outlet in case their Chromebook needs to be charged throughout the day, that they're able to plug in and continue with their lessons. You'll want to make sure that it's free of distractions and separate from siblings. So if siblings have to join a video conference at the same time, it sometimes can be difficult and distracting if you're too close by. So you'll want to make sure that they're in separate areas. And of course, you want to make sure to provide many movement breaks throughout the day so that the students can get, all of their wiggles out and energy out throughout the day. And then we wanted to just give a little bit of guidelines for our live video conferencing. So all the instruction that the teachers are providing is really for the child and the other children in the classroom. If parents would like, they are able to watch with their child for the live video conferencing. However, if a parent has a question or a specific question during the lesson, it is really meant for the child. So the parent would need to reach out to the teacher outside of the lesson time, because we really want to make sure that we're instructing the children during that time. Also, what the parents are doing is really, you might want to watch some of it so that way you can support your child when they have to do their independent work. But like I said, if you have questions, just reach out to your teacher and we will be happy to answer any question that you have. And now Brad has a few more slides.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. All right, so a question that pops up often is what if there is a COVID case at one of our schools? And so that's a great question and one that we've talked a lot about. And I want you to know that we're working with our Waukesha County Health Department, the Department of Health and Human Services, as we do actually every year. There are several various viruses that pop up that we have protocols that we work with the county health department. You may have actually received some information one time when maybe somebody in your child's classroom had pertussis or the dreaded head lice or something like that. And so we have a great relationship working with the health department, and there are protocols put into place for this. So you would be notified if there is a case in your class via a letter, which is what the official way to notify from the county health department. We use our school messenger program to do that, to get that to you in a timely fashion if there is a case. But the entire situation will be taken into account. So I don't, maybe some of you have had some experience with COVID over the summer or the last spring with family members or people you know, and you know that it's a pretty complex process of tracing, where they're asking you where you've been and who you've been with and when you believe or when your symptoms started, and all of that type of thing will be taken into account to try to determine and trace back when students were potentially exposed. And so we may find a situation where a student has a case but was not potentially exposing other students, and we continue on with that student out of school. There may be situations where we quarantine a classroom or any other students that may have been in close contact, and then if there's an outbreak or too many cases, we may end up closing a school at a time, and I shouldn't say closing it physically and moving into a fully virtual instructional model, and there may be a case where we do that with the entire district. So it really depends on the situation. And we're going to trust the health experts that study this, that know what's going on, and that do the tracing, and we will work with them, and we will work with them quickly and thoroughly. So district office will be heavily involved in those decision-making processes. That won't be just to each individual school's health room or each principal. We will keep that communication frequent and at a deep level. So we hope that our safety procedures are putting us in a good position where we don't deal with that, but we know that despite our best efforts, that we need to prepare for that scenario, for that if that potentially happens. So this is pretty much the end of our plan presentation, but I do have a few questions that we had popped up on here. We had asked for questions before the presentation, and several of them were submitted, and there were some common themes that were not specifically addressed in some of the previous slides, and so we just put these up on a frequently asked questions slide, and I want to address a couple of those, and then we'll start taking some of the questions from what you've been submitting live during this time, and we'll kind of take that round robin with people taking those as they pop up. So there are a few questions around school supplies. You will bring all of your school supplies to the elementary assessment conferences, or what we call Ready, Set, Go for 4K. I know there are questions about whether we're going to have those. Yes, we will. And yes, those will be face-to-face. We think it's an important chance for students and parents to be able to see the classroom, meet the teacher, have a chance to physically come into the building. I know it can be a nervous thing entering the school on that first day of school, and so that's a great opportunity to come in, but it's also an opportunity to drop off school supplies. And if you ordered one of the school toolkits from any number of the schools, those will be delivered right to school. They will be in the classroom and waiting for you. And we've had a few questions about given the fact that some of the learning will be done at home and some at school, do we need all of the supplies? And really, I think we'll leave that up to you, and it depends on what you need. So if there's a certain number of folders that we need, those are the ones that are needed for organizing students' work. Those would all need to be in school. But if you had a bunch of pencils, half of those could be left at home, half of them could be in school. Generally, school supplies don't always last the entire year, and we need to replenish them as they come anyways. We want to make sure you have what you need at home as well. And all of the schools have banks of school supplies at school that we can always help to outfit students if they need things too. So please don't hesitate to reach out to school if you are in need of school supplies. So, all right, there was questions about registration. Online registration information came this past weekend via email. I believe it came on Saturday. I know I got it for my 3 students. There are links on there for you to verify the data that we have in our system, pay school fees, school lunch, and all that kind of stuff. So if you did not receive that email, first check your spam folder, your junk folder, and make sure that it didn't make it into that filter. And if you still don't find it, please reach out to your child's school. We want to make sure we have the correct contact information. We have the email addresses that you've shared with us, and those change over time sometimes. So we want to make sure we have that up to date. Reach out if you did not already get that. We usually take school photos during our back to school fairs, where we do a lot of our registration stuff. To prevent multiple people in the building throughout the whole day, we are going to put those off and have those during the school day in either September or October, like we used to do it for years and years. So stay tuned for more information on that. There's been a few questions about Kids Inc. as well, and Kids Inc. will be offered at all of the schools. If you were with us in the past, we did some shared schools. Shady Lane and Ben Franklin both hosted Kids Inc. for both our school and our partner schools this year, so that we prevent having kids mixing within the buildings. We'll have Kids Inc. offered at all of the schools, but Kids Inc. will be offered before school and after school for the days that the students are in school. I know we've had a lot of people asking about those virtual days in the hybrid, if that would be offered, and as we truly understand some of the hardships and the challenges that families have with their students on days that they're not in school, we don't have the capacity to offer Kids Inc. on those off days for a number of reasons. The space requirements, if we're using a hybrid model to reduce the number of students in school, and then we brought a lot of them back, it would defeat some of the purpose of that, and then also some of the staffing challenges. So Kids Inc. will remain before and after school when your children are in school. And if you have other specific Kids Inc. Questions, you can always also reach out to the Community Ed and Rec Department. We work very closely with Kids Inc. And I don't mean to deflect any of those questions, but they can probably better give you some more specific answers on that. People have been asking, when are we going to find out for Group A and Group B? And Tina addressed that a little bit earlier, but those assignments will be coming this week in that mailing with the teacher assignment as well. And then there was several questions about students with IEPs. Case managers or our special education teachers will be working closely with families and the teams to do what's best for those individual students. Things will look probably fairly similar when we're in school, but the support for when students are at home may look different. Every IEP, which stands for Individualized Education Plan, is individualized, and so we'll work with families around what student needs are. And then Wednesdays keep popping up too. Is that still an early release day? And yes, Wednesday will still be early release. So before we get into some of the questions that have kind of popped up live as we go, I just want to share this, and I know these aren't clickable links for you right now as you see this, but they all kind of go to the same spot. So we have COVID frequently asked questions on our fall schools page. We also have all of our back to school supply list on our back to school page. And then there's the dashboards around the metrics as well. So there's been a lot of questions about the metrics. What are we looking at? What is the data saying? I've had people reach out and ask me about those numbers as well. You can follow those live. They're updated frequently. All of those found at fallschools.org, and then you can navigate pretty intuitively through those tabs to find out where you want to go. So I want to thank you for sticking with us so far. It looks like we have just over 30 minutes probably left for us to get to some of those questions. There's a lot of questions I'm seeing that have kind of popped up. We've got someone who's trying to group them a little bit to make them a little bit more efficient, and we'll do our best to answer all of them. I'm sure there'll be something that slipped through the cracks that we weren't able to completely answer, or something that was really specific that we'd rather reach out individually for. So please, if you do not get your question answered tonight, please reach out to your child's school, call the front office, reach out to the principal via phone, email. We'll answer those questions. We want everybody to be informed and have all of that information. So while I've been talking, my three colleagues have been looking through those questions. So I'm going to toss it to one of them. I don't remember who's been looking at that, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen there so you can see Scott answer questions for you. You're muted, Scott. That happened to two of you.
I got through almost the entire day without muting myself. That's awesome. So I'm going to take, there was been a lot of questions about hand washing versus sanitizers. We know that the majority of our classrooms have sinks and soap, and in the majority of cases, we're going to be hand washing. We also know that we have bathrooms close by most classrooms, so we can certainly hand wash, but there will be times that we will use sanitizer, for example, going out from the cafeteria to the playground, maybe coming back in, and we have some classrooms at elementary school and even at middle school and high school where there are no sinks in the classroom. So we have worked with healthcare providers this summer, both with Children's Hospital and Freighter, and both have not expressed concerns versus hand washing versus sanitizing. What we keep hearing back is that sanitizing is better than doing nothing, and it's acceptable and doing exactly what it needs to be doing. So I know there's some concerns, but when we've worked with our providers, they're very comfortable with the plan.
And I will talk a little bit about students, our young learners getting into the building. We know for 4K students, it is their first time in a building at a school. And our 5K students who didn't get to finish out their year as 4Kers, it's a big transition for them. And Brad and I are fortunate enough, we have some great experts. They have been doing this, all of them experienced teachers, and they really understand developmentally what these kids need. So our first week, even though you might have a child who's 4 or 5, and it's their first time coming to school, they are going to come for 2 days. So if you are in the A group, they will come for 2 days, and it will be the same experience, the same things learned on those 2 days as the other group coming in the other hybrid group. So they will really take the children through slowly. As Tina said before, do a lot of relationship building, build a comfort level with being back in the building again. So the first step, though, is those Ready, Set, Go conferences for our 4Kers, and elementary assessment days for the 5-year-olds, and your teachers are going to be spending some time with you, showing you some of the technology pieces and getting you a little bit familiar with that. So it's a great opportunity for you to come with your child, see the classroom, see part of the school there where their classroom area is going to be, and start building that comfort in being around the teacher.
Okay, another question that I had seen was for the hybrid model, who will be teaching Group B while they're also teaching Group A in person? And it will be the same teacher. So our IT department has done a lot of work at making sure to have a system where they are able to work with both the students who are at home and the students that are in front of them. They will be using Google Meet, all within the Google Classroom as well. There's a live conferencing portion of the Google Classroom. So all of our teachers will be trained on how to do that from our IT department. The one piece with that to remember is that we're teaching little human beings. And so if we say that math is supposed to start at 1 o'clock and that follows lunchtime, sometimes just even within the normal day, we might not start math exactly at 1 o'clock. So if you're at home and you want to join a video conference for the mini lesson at 1 o'clock, it may not start until 1:02 or 1:03 or even 1:05. because sometimes our students or our teachers have to deal with different things that are happening. They might have to walk the kids up from recess back to their classroom, or for the lunchroom back to their classroom, or maybe they're taking a bathroom break with their kids or things like that. So we're just asking everyone to just be a little bit patient and giving us a little bit of grace. So if we say the mini lesson starts at a particular time, we might be a few minutes late, and if you can just be patient and have your kiddo at home, just be patient until it is started for the live video conferencing, that would really be appreciated. You're muted, Brad.
I just did that to make you guys feel better. So I hope you feel better about yourselves. So somebody had asked about windows being left open as long as the weather is good. Air circulation has been key in what we've learned from a lot of our health experts studying this virus. And so Scott outlined a lot of the HVAC changes that'll be happening. And yes, we do have windows in our buildings and most of the rooms that are able to be opened up. And as long as the weather is decent, we'll be able to do that. And I'll jump to another question there because that one was a fairly short one. But someone had asked about if kids are traveling to music and art and other specials versus the teachers coming into the classrooms, will they remain in the same cohorts as they are for recess and stuff to prevent intermixing? And yes, so two answers to that question is we are going to begin the year with our specials teachers traveling to the classroom, with the exception of Phi-Ed, because you just can't do a lot of physical activity in a small classroom. So we'll get those kids to the gym, and we'll have the teachers travel to the classroom. And if our protocols are working and we're remaining safe and we feel like we can start to travel to some of those classrooms, the art room, the music room, the library, and keeping kids safe, we may start to do that. But yes, they will be in their cohorts at the elementary level. That's how we do it anyways. Students in the same class go to those specials in that same class to prevent that intermixing. So.
That's Scott. Sorry, Scott, it's you.
That's okay. I'm good. I was going to talk about school supplies. There are a lot of questions about school supplies. Some of the questions have centered around, is there going to be a different list now that we know the situation more? The lists are still going to be the same. And remember, you can find those on any of the school's websites. There's a back to school tab, and you can click on that tab and find the school website, or I'm sorry, find the school supply list. The other question related to school supplies was, can we leave some of it at home? What if we switch to virtual and the supplies in their desks like last year? I don't think it's ever a bad idea. If there's 12 pencils or 24 pencils on a supply list and you leave 12 of them at home, I don't think that's ever a bad idea. You know, once that child goes through those 12 pencils, which sometimes I know goes pretty quick or pretty slow depending on the child, we will reach out to you and say, hey, can you send in those other 12 pencils that you have at home? So I don't think it's ever a bad idea, especially in this situation. If you want to leave a couple of those supplies at home, that's totally acceptable to us.
I see a question about 4K, so I'll handle that one. It is, as I said before, a big experience for your 4K child to come to school, and we have talked about that this morning at Ben Franklin. Parents can pull up right to the front here, and their door is very close to where the drop-off is. These first couple of days, if you are really feeling like you want to unbuckle and walk them to the door, you would be able to pull into a parking place. I will tell you that, you know, that's very understandable, and that some parents choose to do that, so that, you know, and the teachers will be there to meet your child. So either way, we can definitely work that out. And as with this hybrid, what's also in their favor is we have very small groups, so there'll be a lot of people here to help them.
So there is a question about, will students still be able to receive any interventions or speech? And yes, they will be able to do that. In the past, our students would walk to the intervention rooms on their own. However, this year, our interventionists will go to the classroom to pick up the kids and then walk them to the intervention room. And then we will use all of our mitigation practices. So when a student walks into a classroom, they always hand sanitize or wash their hands. When they're leaving a classroom, they always wash their hands or hand sanitize. Likewise, if they're in the intervention, these are very small groups. So your child might be with a few other kids from other cohorts, like if they're in a group of 2 or a group of 3. However, like we said, we'll be following our mitigation procedures. They'll be wearing their masks. They'll be washing their hands walking into the intervention room. They'll be washing their hands when they're going out. They will also be wiping off their table when they are done using it, just like when they're in their classrooms. If they're in a small group, they would wash their hands there as well. Another question, just as I was going with the hand sanitizer, as I'm talking about washing off the tables, will they be asked to wash their hands or use hand sanitizers before snacks and meals? And yes, it's very similar to that. So prior to students eating any snacks in their classroom, they will be asked to wash their hands or hand sanitize. And they'd be asked after they're done eating, washing their hands and hand sanitizing again. Likewise, same thing for lunch and going out to recess and things like that.
Okay, I see a question, another question about masks and about PE and whether masks be required in PE, and they will when they're indoors. So a lot of recommendations with all kinds of mitigation efforts has basically been outside is best. Whenever you can be outside or have windows open is good, and so we will be, we'll have our students outside for FIAD as much as possible, and we talked about that a little bit in a previous slide, but when they're inside, that mask mandate still applies. There is not an exemption for that, and yes, there will be an increased activity, but there's also plenty showing that students and anybody without significant breathing issues can handle the oxygen through a mask, and so yes, masks will stay on during PE. And I guess to keep things a little bit more efficient, I'll just take another question, even though it's not related. There's a question about any recommendations for pickup or drop off handling 2 schools when you have children at 2 different schools. And anybody with multiple kids eventually reaches the day where their kids are spread into different schools. I know last year my kids were in 3 different schools. But we have a 15-minute window of drop off from 8:30 to 8:45. And at the end of the day, 3:45 is when pickup starts, although parents start arriving much earlier than that. And we're usually still going with our pickup procedure by 4 o'clock at the end of the day. And we found over the past 3 years now with our partner schools that parents are able to drop off at one and drop off at the other in time. If you're running behind, yes, it would be difficult to drop your student off at 8:43 and still get them to their other school in time, but in that 15-minute window should be plenty of time for drop off, which is a little bit easier, and even pick up. If you're on time at the one school, you'll catch the tail end of that pickup at the other school. And if families are reaching any really significant challenges of that, we can work and help solve those problems individually as well.
I'm going to take, there's a lot of technology related questions coming up next, so I'll take some of those. Some of those center around, will everybody be getting a Chromebook? So the same as last spring, all children in, oh, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm only thinking with my 3rd through 5th grade ahead. Help me out, Brandon, Carolyn. First through 5th grade, thank you. 1st through 5th grade will be getting, it's been a long time since we've had kindergartners here, sorry. All children in 1st through 5th grade will be receiving a Chromebook. And again, those will be distributed. If I know there's some, this is the hybrid meeting, but I know there's some full virtual parents that are joining us tonight. And I know you've been asking for full virtual students. Those will be distributed at the elementary assessment conferences. For in-person students, those will be distributed during the first week of school. I know there was another question related to that about Google Classroom and tutorials. We are going to spend obviously the first couple of weeks pretty heavily on getting some of those tools down. We also know we need to do a job communicating with you parents, because you're going to be there standing over shoulders like myself, learning Google Classroom inside and out too. So yes, we plan on, you know, whether it's, there are a lot of videos out there already that you could certainly find on your own, but we know we need to direct you to some resources so that you're able to help your son or daughter with Google Classroom as well.
Okay, I'm going to answer the question. I asked if you would be able to work with your child outside of the synchronous time if you have a need due to a care constraint. So the ideal situation is for your child to tune into the lessons during the day, and teachers will provide schedules for that, but we certainly understand everybody has their family needs, and so those lessons are going to be recorded and you will be able to access those at the end of the day. I'll also answer the question about breakfast. If a child is with Kids Inc., they will come to they'll have their breakfast in the cafeteria with the Kids Inc. group. Otherwise, they'll as the children are coming in at 8:30, they'll go to their classroom and the teachers will have the breakfast items there, and they'll be able to eat at 8:30. If your child gets there right as the bell is ringing, the teachers understand, and your child will still be able to finish breakfast within the classroom.
We had a question, are students able to bring their own lunches and water bottles? And yes, students are able to bring their own lunches to school, so there still are the hot lunch and cold lunch options. They're still able to purchase a milk if they would want that, in addition to their cold lunch that they bring from home. Students are also still able to bring snack for them to eat during the lunch or during their classroom. There will be assigned snack times, though. I know some classrooms would sometimes have an open snack policy where kids could eat at any time, but due to our mitigation practices, we will be having an assigned snack time in classrooms. And then for water bottles, we will be asking for students to bring their own water bottles from home. So bubblers will be, or water fountains will be closed. There are some water filling stations. However, we ask that students bring water bottles from home and bring enough water. You may want to send 2 or even 3 water bottles for your child throughout the day. So that way we can decrease how much students are congregating around the water filling stations if you can send enough water bottles with your child to school. And make sure when you send those water bottles that they are clearly marked. So make sure the student's name is on those water bottles so we can make sure that it gets back to the correct person.
Thanks, Tina. There was an excellent question that said, you've talked a lot about kids coming back, but what tips do you have for first-time kindergartners? And you could substitute first-time 4K students or really anybody new to the school, new third graders at our partner schools. So a really good question. And I could probably talk a long time about this, but I'll cut some of the shorts. Just some basic things. I think one of the biggest things for you to do is talk positively about the start of school, share your excitement, even if you're feeling nerves about your kid coming back to school and sending them off to school for the first time. And obviously this year, especially with the concerns we have around health, there's talk everywhere about COVID and how everybody's feeling. And I don't think it's great to hide everything for your kids, but I think to just show them and model that reassurance that when they're at school, they're there to be with their friends and their teacher and to learn and to have fun. And all of that feeling projects onto your children as well, just as the anxiety and the nerves do. Sometimes you have to hide a little bit of that from your kids. I've been there myself as well. So, and I think practically one of the best things that you can do is to make sure that you do sign up for one of those elementary assessment conferences or Ready, Set, Go and 4K, because that's the chance to actually meet your teacher. That's the chance to see where you go into school when you arrive. That's the chance to see the classroom. And a lot of those things help reduce anxiety in students a ton, really knowing where they're going to go so it's not a mystery on that first day, especially if you have to put them on the bus and they don't know where they're going. So talk about school, talk about being excited about school. Definitely acknowledge the fears and the anxieties that your child have. Don't minimize those, but answer them the best they can and tell them you're excited for them to go to school and you can't wait for them to come back. And there was a little bit of a follow-up sentence to that question that said, especially if they're in Group B and will not be attending live in person the first 2 days. And so I just want to clarify in case people aren't sure. I know Tina shared that calendar, but this is confusing. We've never done school in a hybrid model before. That first week of school, students will not be tuning in from home on their off days because so much of that time is going to be really about talking to kids in school and some of our in-school protocols. If your child is in the B group, they will not attend even virtually on that first Tuesday and Wednesday. And if your child's in that A group, they'll be here physically Tuesday and Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday they will not have school. They won't tune in. And then the following week, it'll kick into our regular schedule. And the same thing for 4K, which starts the following week. So I just wanted to be clear on that. Hope that helps.
I'm going to answer a question about, there seems to be a couple questions related to this about recess and play. Will kids be allowed to play with each other? Are they going to be kept socially distanced and maybe have plastic dividers in between them? And I want to go back to what Brad said at the beginning. So none of us, we know this is not the ideal. None of us certainly prepared for this as families, as principals, as teachers, et cetera, but we also know that we need to keep creating school so it's a memorable experience and kids have fun here and kids are engaged. So we need to do that. We don't want it to seem like we're removing all the fun per se. We're certainly going to keep the fun here, but we also know that this is a much better option than if we have to close down a classroom or close down a school and kids are at home. So we do have some things in place, and I guess the old adage about better safe than sorry. So when they are at recess, that's why they will be in, I think it was explained before, they will be in different zones on the playground. So they will be allowed to play within their cohorts, and that's why they're homerooms. That's why we went with the cohort or homeroom model, because we felt that was a safer model. So we'd at least have kids in the building because we want kids back in the building. I cannot emphasize that enough, but we do know that we need to put some procedures and mitigation efforts in place and trust those mitigation efforts. So we certainly, if the numbers keep ticking down and we know that things are working, I think we may be able to remove some of those things, per the guidance of the health department as we go along here. We definitely want to get to that point too, but we want to start off with that better safe than sorry approach.
Okay, I'm just going to clarify, and especially if you have been in elementary school other years, you may have received your letter with your teacher placement and information about signing up for those Ready, Set, Go conferences earlier than this year, and we really appreciate your patience with that. We had to wait until we had all the decisions lined up and really wanted to do what was best for our kids. So we have had that deadline for the virtual, which impacted our getting the class list together, and then also putting the students into the groups and giving you enough time to know what our procedures were going to be. So just to clarify, we are finishing up we have finished the class list. We are sending out letters this week, and inside the letters, you will get more detailed information. A lot of the things that we shared today will be in there again for your reference, as well as on our website. But it will explain to you about the process for signing up for these conferences that we're talking about. So what will happen is you will get information about a link. You will go to the link, and in that link, you'll see your child's teacher's name, and you'll be able to sign up for a time that works for you for that conference. And so all of that detailed information will be in there and guide you to sign up for that. So you'll know your child's teacher, you'll know your group, you'll be able to sign up for that conference, and the conferences are next week.
And I had noticed a few questions about lunch, so I just wanted to come back to that a little bit. So students will be wearing their masks when going through the lunch line, and then they will be sitting as a classroom. When they are sitting within their classroom, they will not be seated 6 feet apart from one another. We are staggering their seating, so there won't be anyone sitting directly across from them, but they might be diagonal from one another at the table. Between classrooms, we will have 6 feet apart between classrooms. So for example, at Valley View in our cafeteria, 2 classrooms will be eating in the cafeteria, so we can provide enough space between them. And 2 classrooms will be eating in the gymnasium, so that way we can provide enough classrooms enough room between those classrooms as well. So they're not sitting 6 feet apart from each student within their classroom. That is more of a diagonal, so there's not anyone across from them, but it's 6 feet apart between classrooms.
All right. Thanks, Tina. I've seen a few questions about absences, and at this point we're probably starting to repeat some of the questions and answers, so I apologize if we've already got to that, but we've had a few. So I've seen a few pop up about absences, and somebody had asked about consequences for absences, and really it's never about consequences, but more about working with you to get your children to school when they can be and engaged when they're at home however they can. So some were asking about consequences. Some had asked about if a child is home because they're sick. Are they able to still tune in virtually, even if it's not their hybrid day? And I think that's one of the advantages in this model, is that if a student were sick for a non-COVID related reason, which happens all the time during the school year, we now have technology infrastructure set up so that students can tune in from home. Now, we don't expect them, if they're really down and out and are really not up to learning, that might not be the best time to do that. But if it's just something keeping them home, especially for something precautionary, they could still tune in and be part of that class, just like if they were there. And on the days, even if it is your virtual day, and the student is not up for the learning, or the absence is because your family situation doesn't allow them to be tuning in synchronously at that time, those will be recorded. I think we mentioned that earlier in the presentation, so I apologize for repeating that. I just want to be clear, because I know that there's a lot of anxiety and worry about that for families who are having trouble doing that. We want to encourage you to do the best that you can with family arrangements or whatever it might be, so students can tune in live for those lessons. But if they are not able to, for whatever reason, on a temporary basis, those will be recorded and be able to be accessed after the fact.
I'm just going to hit on a few more technology questions. Yes, students can certainly use their own home computers instead of the Chromebook if that works better for them, or if it's in a good spot. Certainly, as long as they can access the G Suite, because a lot of those products, especially at 3rd through 5th grade, will be using, that's totally fine, all those Google products. Will there be parent training for technology? As I said before, if you happen to be a fully virtual parent whose son or daughter is attending fully virtual, that training will start at that elementary assessment conference next week, where you will be invited into the room and that teacher will sit down with you and your child and kind of go through it for you, because that is could be our only face-to-face meeting with you. For our in-person students, as I said, we're going to work hard on what information do parents need, and do we send home, whether it's videos, whether it's documents, on how to keep you up and running with how to use Google Meet or Google Classroom or things like that. And before we keep going with questions, I just want to remind you too, I think Brad said this at the beginning, but we're up to about 175 questions or so now. We're certainly not going to get to them all tonight. So please know that we are viewing them all. We're trying to capture, kind of cluster the questions into some patterns. If we didn't answer your specific question, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. I think we all operate with that 24-hour rule, returning phone calls and emails. So please reach out to your child's principal and we will certainly get back to you. We're not trying to miss any questions on purpose.
Okay, I'm going to come back to 4K. One of my favorite groups. I spend a lot of time in that room. I just love it. So one of the questions is about some questions about Ready, Set, Go, and there, just in general, there's several questions there, and we get it. That's your first time as parents too, and you really want to set your child up for success, and that's what we really love about our community. The big thing about Ready, Set, Go is it's a time for you and the teacher, your 4K teacher, to sit down together, talk about your child as an individual. So you get to really give your insights about your child, and your child is in the room with the other educational assistant that's always there every day. It's almost like they're co-teachers. Kids just think of the educational assistant as a partner teacher, but that other educational assistant will be doing an activity, kind of walking your child around the room to start building that comfort level, while you sit down and talk with the 4K teacher and give some background about your child, and some of the questions you're asking now, they will answer for you. So that's that time to get you both set for this great year that you're going to have ahead.
So one question was, will the teachers see the kids on the cameras while they are teaching? And from what our IT department was able to all find the solution for us for that is yes, the teacher will be able to see the students who are joining virtually and will be able to see them. They will actually have two screens. So one screen will be where they can see the students joining. They can hear the students. So the teacher can choose whether they want the students to be able to talk to the whole class, or whether the students who are at home are only being heard by the teacher, depending upon what's happening for the lesson. But the teacher will be able to see the at-home students and the in-person students. Am I promising top quality videoing while they're teaching? I'm not promising that. Again, as we've been saying, when we started this and it started wanting to become a teacher, we were not videographers. So though they will be having the live video conferencing, there may be times that the teacher might accidentally get up and then go and work one-on-one with the student and then come back. So there may be different little things that happen within the videos. But like I had said before, and like we've all been saying, we ask for your patience and grace. This is the first time that teachers will be doing this as well. So as we learn and as we grow, we will be training teachers, but this will be the first time they're using it. And so we just ask for a little bit of patience as we become more masters at the live video conferencing.
Thank you, and I see some more 4K questions, and they may have been submitted before we've answered some of these, but I know the anxiety that can surround dropping your 4-year-old off to school for the first time, so maybe it bears repeating some of the answers. There's just one that asks about dropping students off and having a hard time imagining that a student is going to walk into school by themselves, and so and somebody also asked about having to walk across the parking lot. And both and Carlene can answer specifically for BF if it's different, because we both have different physical setups of our building. But we have a place where you can drive pretty near the doors. There's also places to park and walk up. Many parents do that. And in this case, you know, and our normal procedures would be to be dropped off to that playground, and kids can kind of have a little play time on the playground before they come in, but to prevent from that gathering on there, we're going to go right to the door. So yes, parents can walk up right to that door and give that hug and take that picture on the first day, and they'll walk in. Some kids are flying in ready to go, and some of them are a little bit more nervous, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of a hand transfer with one of our teachers or one of our educational assistants, and sometimes sadly it's through tears, and that has nothing to do with COVID. That's every year. 4Kers, I mean even 5Kers, and probably some 5th graders crying on that first day of school from some of those nerves. But I promise you, I have never in all of my years at school seen a kid who is not within a few minutes of getting into that classroom ready to go and excited to be in school. So it's going to be okay, but yes, you can park, you can walk your student up to that door, and you can say goodbye. Somebody did ask if they'd be able to walk their students to the class on the first day, and unfortunately, no. We want to really limit the number of people in the building to just the students and our staff. And even if it's about nerves, I have to tell you as a parent, it doesn't get easier at the classroom door than it does to the outside door to the school. And actually, as a matter of fact, it usually gets more difficult. So you'll be able to show your student where that classroom is, and they'll see that space during the Ready, Set, Go or the assessment conference days. I just want to emphasize that. And I know we've repeated it several times, but I know what it's like to send your kid off to school first time, and it can be nerve-wracking. So I just want to offer some reassurance there that it's going to be okay.
Awesome. I just wanted to hit on there a few questions. I know we talked about special education before. There's a few questions about special education and meeting needs, especially in the hybrid model. So the one thing that I can tell you is that we are obligated, and we come here every day with a passion and a purpose to meet every child where they're at. And I absolutely love the people that I work with, as I'm sure Tina, Brad, and Carlene would say the same thing. And the reason I love them is they work their tails off to meet every single child where they're at. We know in a hybrid model it'll look different, but it is still our responsibility, whether there is an IEP in place or whether there's a reading intervention need, on those days that your child is home, to still meet those needs while they're at home. So our special education teachers, our reading interventionists, math interventionists will still be checking in and doing groups with those students to work on the specific skills that they need. So things will look different, and that IEP, that individual education plan, may look different, but it's going to be the same, as that we're going to craft it as a team with you included in order to meet their needs.
Okay, I'm going to address a couple of technology ones that came in. Very understandable for you to be wondering about this. Yes, we do want the Chromebooks to be tools that the students use, and students are going to be using RazKids again. So those very likely would come home at night, and students would be reading on them. And, we just want to get them in the habit of taking them back and forth. Yes, the teachers will have microphones and, or great technology, I should say, not a full set of, elaborate setup. But our technology department is second to none, and they have been working on this since the COVID started last year. And over the summer, I have been so impressed with what they have come up with for our teachers, to do this hybrid. We are very excited because we feel it's, a great situation to get the kids back to school, but yet they're going to make great connections with them on those days that they aren't in the classroom. So they should be in a really good place for you to hear the lessons at home.
Okay, and then I wanted to ask or answer a clarifying question. So the question was, are we actually taking the class and dividing it in half? So half of the kids in that classroom are A and half are B, and yes, that is what is happening. So let's just pretend Mr. Welter is teaching 3rd grade. All of the students in his classroom will be split in half. Half of them will attend in group A and half of them will attend in group B. And he will be the teacher for both of those groups. And then the other question was for busing. Will buses still go to both partner schools? And yes, the bus routes will stay the same. Students will have assigned seats on the bus in order to minimize how much crossing there is in the aisle. So we are going to do our best with setting assigned seats so that they're not all, in random spots sitting on the bus, and we're able to say who they are sitting with, but they will go to both partner schools just like they did in the past.
All right, thank you, Tina. And we're reaching the end here, and I've noticed that our participation's dropped off a little bit. It's probably getting close to bedtime, and so I'm sure there's a couple questions we've tried to navigate through that have slipped or haven't quite answered it as specifically as you were wondering. And so please do not hesitate to reach out. That was one of the questions I saw was, who do we ask about this? You can always contact your school, and if it's not our building admin assistants, it's our principals that should be able to answer all of those, or at least be able to point you in the right direction. So please do not hesitate to reach out. Phone, email, always works. So go ahead and do that. But otherwise, we're gonna wrap up for the evening. I want to thank you for coming to learn a little bit more what school looks like. I'll be honest, there's a few questions in here we can't quite answer yet, which are just a couple little specific things that we'll be kind of working through too, so we appreciate that. We have a bunch of questions we're still going to use, this week and next week before kids come back to shore up all of those. None of the questions have surprised us, but some of them we may not have the exact specific answer for quite yet. We have much work to do, but we are all excited. I know I'm speaking fairly for the other 3 principals. We are all really excited to have kids back in the building as we've gone back and forth this summer about how we're going to be able to best keep kids safe and what school's going to look like. I think we're excited to have students back. So thank you for joining us. And if you join this meeting, but your student is registered for fully virtual and you had a little bit more specific questions about that, we do have information sessions coming up for those. And now that I mention it, I need to look at my calendar so I can tell you those exact dates. But emails went out to all those virtual families telling them about that. But Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock or Thursday evening at 6:30, we have those as well. We'll be answering those questions. Will be specifically about fully virtual instruction. So before I sign off for the night, I guess I want to make sure that nobody else has anything else they want to say. So I'm looking at some nods. We seem to be good. So I'll say thank you and good night. And we look forward to meeting you and your kids in the coming days, in the assessment days, and when school gets started. Thank you so much.